Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the 49ers, Clint's team. So, Clint, I'm going to start with every question for you, and then when we get to Seahawks, I'll do the same for you, Talent. So let's talk first. The 49ers, they finished 12-5 last year. They were had the fourth ranked offense, fourth in passing, 12th in running, and then they were the 29th defensively in scoring defense. That's the only defense I care about. How many points are you allowing? So they were 29th. I thought that was shocking to me. So, your favorite move, Clint, that the Niners made this offseason?
One, they were 6-11 last year. No.
Yeah.
you said 12-5. So
Who were what?
So yeah,
Who was
they were
12
bad
and 5?
last year. You said the Niners were 12-5 when you were just
Oh, you know
reading
what
it.
I did? Oh no. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go continue
But
to
I'll
talk.
accept that as your prediction for this year. No.
Yeah,
That's what it
Uh,
was.
yeah. So my favorite move it's a combination of bringing back Robert Saleh and drafting your defensive line. I just think I'm not a huge scheme fan of Robert Saleh. It's kind of vanilla, and maybe he'll change it up. There's been rumors that he changed it up. They showed a little in preseason doing more blitzing than he did before, but he brings a really solid system. He gets guys up, and the defensive line it obviously needed to be revamped. As you said, 29th against the run last year. It was evident in a lot of games they just couldn't stop the run. So Michael Williams, C.J. West, now I forgot the dude from Texas, just giant humans. They drafted all these dudes are big, and even if they're not pass rushers at the moment, they're all graded good against the run. So I think that was their biggest concern is if we can't stop the run, then the rest is irrelevant because you can play action off of it. Teams can bleed the clock, punish you. So that would be my favorite move is just revamping that while bringing back Saleh.
Yeah, 6-11's right. And the Cardinals were actually, I just want to correct myself real quick, we're 8-9 last year. I looked up the wrong year. I went 1 year too far when I was doing the records. My bad. Good correction though. Good correction. Uh what about you, Talon? What was your favorite move that the Niners made?
Yeah, drafting run stuffers, Michael Williams, Alfred Collins. Good draft selections. Uh Startable players right away. They could have gone a little higher upside, but those were what they needed, and they will make immediate impact because the yards per carry went up tremendously, and that was one of the big things that led the Niners 2 years ago to the Super Bowl was because they went that year they were second in yards per carry let up in the whole NFL. So that was I think it was 3.4 yards per carry that year. So they definitely want to get back to that simple formula. And even though it's vanilla is still people's top ranked ice cream flavor because it's a go-to. It's refreshing, and Robert Saleh brings vanilla, but sometimes that's what wins games. It doesn't have to look nice, it doesn't have to be sexy. They just need to start with the basics again.
Yeah, I think like what you know, taking a play page out of the Eagles playbook. It's like just get a good, strong defensive line, and then you don't have to do a whole lot to generate pressure. So I'm kind of with you guys. I love the Robert Saleh thing, but I added just in case because like I knew I also like that they kind of traded for Brian Robinson Jr. just in case something happens to McCaffrey. I don't mind that move. They didn't give up a lot, like a 6th round pick, was it? Clint, it wasn't a high
Yes,
pick.
it was the worst of theirs in Minnesota's 6th round pick.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of a good move just because Robinson is not a bad runner. He averages over 4 yards a carry. So now you put him in a place where they love to run the ball. It might take some pressure off of McCaffrey too, which you need to keep him healthy. So I like that move too. Wasn't my favorite move, but I liked it. Okay, let's do least favorite. What was your least favorite move that they made there, Clint?
Well, I'm going to just go, not going a bit. I know why they didn't do it, health and money, but it's not like great Dre Greenlaw got paid a boatload by the Broncos. So I think making an exception for him probably would have been on my list. I understand why they didn't. D. Winters looks really good, but he's another guy who is often hurt. Uh, so we'll see how that goes. But it's probably my least favorite is not just going that extra little bit and trying to cut a corner somewhere else to keep Dre Greenlaw.
Okay, like it. How about you, Talon?
I think not adding another receiver to bolster the receiver room. You got Ricky Pearsall. That's why I expect big things for him because I think his target volume is just going to be a necessity. Brandon Ayuk's still going to be coming back from injury. When is he supposed to be back? Is there
After
a
week 6 or later.
Yeah, so I mean, of course you've got Kittle, but Kittle's had injury concerns in the past too. I mean, and then it's bad if Juan Jennings can uh really request a lot of money because they're desperate. And so sometimes that just is a credit to bad planning. So just adding another receiver bolster that up.
Yeah, I agree with Talon on this. I was looking at the receiving core and it's a lot of unknown other than Ayuk, right? Like, I mean, Jennings is fine, but for the most part, they went and they traded for Sky Moore, and then I think today they signed, or was it today or yesterday they signed MVS. And so
Yeah,
like
today.
obviously, yeah, today. So obviously they're not very. I can't imagine they're very confident in the receiving room right now if they're making moves to bring in wide receivers. So I think maybe neglecting it a little bit. I understand you gotta move on from some of those people like Debo Samuel and so on, but it's a little too thin for my liking. And I think Purdy is one of those quarterbacks that just needs a lot of not a lot, just like Goff though. He just needs a certain amount of talent around him to succeed, and I don't know if they have that yet with their wide receiving core or not. So that's that. I'm with that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think Jennings is fine. I think MVS is just, hey, we need someone for possibly week 1 to just go run.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
But
run.
but I do, yeah, just go run deep. You know, just say hi to your Seahawks friends from the off season, and then just go stand out there, jog down the tunnel. But I do think they'll probably end up with Kendrick Bourne too. The Patriots just cut him today,
okay.
and he obviously Juwan Jennings replaced him. So I think they're putting pressure on Juwan Jennings because his contract that he has is highly incentive, and with his calf, he's not going to play. You could, in theory, sign Kendrick Bourne and then put him on injured reserve for 4 weeks, and then it would cost him like $2.5 million that incentives he wouldn't get. So I think there's a game going on of if you don't want to practice or play, cool, you're going to lose $3 million when we put you on IR for 4 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Okay. Let's go on to our next. What's your green flag there, Clint, going into the season for the Niners?
It's going to be Robert Saleh. I just think I'm hopeful that for all of these teams, I put the first thing is an easy schedule. The biggest green flag for the NFC West is scheduling, but I think having Robert Saleh bring back that intensity on defense as the season goes on, I think you'll really see it ramp up, and barring the football gods help, and we're not playing random dudes off the street, that I think that defense will creep up to the top 12, 10, 8 range, because I do like a lot of the pieces they have. It's just they got to fill in those gaps. So I think for me, the biggest green flag is I think you've upped the baseline, and I don't think the defense will be 29th against the run. I don't think they'll give up a ton of points like they did in stretches. And if you just increase that, that adds a couple wins right off the bat.
Yeah, I put that down too, just so we're not repeating ourselves. I know a little bit of a broken record, but I just think that you're not going to finish 29th in scoring defense either. I don't think that'll happen. So if you can get 20 or higher, that's obviously going to be a positive. I think the Niners will get there because I trust in Robert Saleh. What say you, Talon?
Yeah, CMC returning. He seems healthy, and his track record has been every other year. And so he had most of last year off, arguably all of last year, minus a couple games. And there was a point last year where you were thinking, this guy's done with football. He's not going to come back from this. And as a fan of players, you don't want to see that. As a Seahawks fan, I've been kind of tired of him tormenting us. And I think he's going to come back strong this year. And so I think that's the biggest green flag. And the ones you mentioned are good too, but at the risk of sounding redundant, I'll go with
Yeah,
that one.
I like it. I like it. Let's not be redundant. Okay, let's go to red flags. Clint, your big red flag going into the season?
Depth. You mentioned it with wide receiver. Same with McCaffrey. Same with Kittle. You don't have the depth that you had before. And if one goes down, especially right now, the chain reaction is pretty bad. I mean, Brian Robinson helps, but again, Brian Robinson isn't, he's not going to catch 50 balls out of the backfield.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And be this, catching all these checkdowns and making 5 yards into 25 yards. So I'm just worried that, especially offensively, until some of these guys get back for the first half of the season, if you get another injury where a guy is missing more than a week, it might be we have to win ugly some of these games, which you can't afford to lose some of these.
Yeah, I think the division is going to be pretty close to up on top. So yeah, you gotta keep pace early on. Talon, what's your biggest red flag?
That they were last in the division last year, and that didn't happen for no reason. I mean, to go from Super Bowl to last place shows the highs and lows that this team can have any given year. And there have only been around 5 teams that have gone from Super Bowl to last in division the very next year in the Super Bowl era. So that's kind of an outlier. And like Clint said, injuries and a couple big injuries can really start to derail this team fast. If they stay healthy, of course, that's the if for any NFL team, but those are the big ifs for this team.
Yeah, and there was a great exodus for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how these new young players fill their role. So I think like there is a potential for this year to be like a growing year. I'm not saying they're going to have a bad season, but like the young players, I mean, they lost Samuel, Banks, Moore, Mitchell, Floyd, Greenlaw, Mason, Hargrave, Collins, Ward. So they lost a lot of players, and including veteran players and like leaders. So I just think the red flag for me is especially, I don't know, like with the Exodus, it could be a kind of a growing year, not where they lose 6 games again, but where it's just like you're dealing with like the mistakes that young players make and players that get into a new system makes. You're trying to figure out who that number one guy is going to be with Ayuk out, stuff like that. And then if you get an injury or two, it can really, like, guys said, it could derail the season a little bit. So that's sort of the red flag for me. It's kind of like it's going to be a little bit, I think, messy to start out because it seems like a growing year for them.
Yeah, and the only pushback I give people, like you mentioned, all the guys that left, is like half of those guys you named didn't even play last year.
Fair.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh no, they lost Hufanga. I'm like, I think the dude played like one game. And
Sure.
Drake Greenwell played 3 quarters, and I don't even think Hargrave played at all.
And look at their record.
Right. So I mean,
Yeah.
like your baseline basement, 6-11. Like, okay, you probably, even you bring in rookies, if they're just average, right? You're better than what you lost in that regard. So some of those guys I would love to keep, but as far as if you're looking at this year, you're right. You lose some veteran leadership in there, which I think you semi-replaced with Robert Saleh. But a lot of those guys that we loved as Niners fans, you're like, dude, they didn't even play last year. So that baseline 6-11 is like, cool, we lost dudes that didn't contribute.
Okay, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Let's go to fantasy football go-to, Clint. Who's the fantasy football go-to for you?
I think it's Ricky Pearsall.
Okay.
I just think, and he tends to get soft tissue injuries, which makes me nervous. He's had a couple hamstring injuries since we've drafted him, but I think the last 4 games, he just destroyed man coverage, even though 49ers weren't good. I think he's really good, especially those in-cutting routes, which the 49ers like. And so I think, again, assuming a relatively healthy season, I think he can top the Brandon Ayuk season from a couple of years ago, because I think they're going to rely on him. And I think to start the year, if the defense is a little leaky to start the year, they're going to have to throw a little more. So I think he is going to have a huge year, and he's still going probably a little later in drafts than he probably should. But again, it's because he's unproven. And if Ayuk does come back, maybe it cuts into that a little, but I don't know if I would bank on Ayuk coming back and automatically being really good. So I think Ricky Pearsall is going to have a huge year.
Okay, I like it. I'm gonna look out for him in drafts then. Talon?
George Kittle, because after George Kittle at tight end, I think there's a huge tier break, and he so easily could be the number one ranked tight end, and you can get him in the third round. That's great value, and he's going to get a ton of targets. So I think he might have the best fantasy season of his career, and that's
Okay.
kind of saying a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a bold one. I put my fantasy go-to is if I draft McCaffrey, I'm handcuffing him. That's my fantasy go-to. So I'm gonna draft Robinson, and you wouldn't have to draft him until later. So my go-to is if you draft McCaffrey, make sure you handcuff him because you want whoever his replacement will be if he gets injured or if and when he gets injured.
How scared was Robinson going into that running back room with the ghosts of Niners running back past that always get injured in that backfield?
I didn't pull a
be
hamstring
terrified.
walking to the car.
Yeah, I'd be terrified.
Well, right, but also
Traded me to
like
who?
yeah, but think of the running backs though. There's like a pro and con to it because like the Niners all like they throw Elijah Mitchell back there and he's like good. And then who was that guy last year? Started with the
Jordan
G.
Mason.
Oh, Mason, but who was the other guy that was like their
Garendo.
Yes, him. Like it's like where did that dude come from? So I there's like a pros and cons. Like yeah, you're worried about injury, but you also know if you can stay healthy, you'll probably be successful because most running backs are successful in that system. So,
Sure.
yeah. But okay, prediction. So the over under that I found was 10.5 for the Niners this coming season. What do you got them going, Clint?
So this was tough because I do think three of these teams are going to be really close.
I agree.
But I'm gonna be optimistic. 14. No.
14-3.
I'm gonna be like the Packer fans I'm surrounded by. No, I went with a slight over. I think they can get to 11-6 based, and most of that, as I've told people, most of that is based off of the schedule that the 49ers play. I don't know that maybe by the end of the year they'll look like an 11 or 12, a legit 11 and 12 win team, but I think based on the schedule that the 49ers play with competence, I think you could clear 10 wins.
Okay, perfect. Okay, what about you, Talon? Where you got him?
It's always funny because after all the red flags we talked about, you think 7-10, but I think that would be crazy with the schedule. When you're going through the schedule, you're like, there's no way they lose that game. There's no way they lose that game. So I had them at 11-6 as well. And by the time I was done with that, I couldn't believe it, but it's that easy of a schedule, and far worse teams with easy schedules have been able to accomplish that. And this is by no means a bad team.
That's fair. I went just under 10-7. So I'm around where you guys are, but just under the 10.5. I think early in the season there'll be some hiccups, and then they'll get into rhythm. But I also expect like McCaffrey to miss a game or two. Kittle might be a little banged up, so and then there'll be some challenges there. But 10-7, I'm only a game off from you guys, so it's not that far. Anything else on the Niners? Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.